Hi everybody, thank you for coming back to the channel. Today we want to talk about 4 data validation techniques that you can use if you're trying to, for example, validate the entries in a form, or if you want to make sure that you're dealing with dates that are within the range that you need them to be in. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over these 4 different use cases, and right next to them you see the formulas that we're going to use, and I'll go through the demonstrations of exactly what these formulas mean and how you can apply them to whatever you're doing. Now the first one is a date and time validation. In a previous video, I believe was the payroll hours video, you see that date and time within Google Sheets tends to be kind of complicated. You have to be very careful which formulas use, which functions you use in those formulas, and how you want the data and how you want the actual date to be represented. So in this case, I'm just going to take a very simple formula. We're using the AND function. Now if you're familiar with mathematical logic, you know that there's AND, or, not, and I think there's union, intersection, all this sort of stuff, but that's a different section of mathematics from way back when. But with the AND function, you know that in order for it to be true, both pieces have to be true. So in this case, what we're talking about is that I want to make sure that the date that you put into a cell is both within the top range, could be within or equal to the top, and within and equal to the bottom of the range. In this case, we're looking at January 1st, between January 1st, 2023, and that's using the date function. And see here, it's also greater than or equal to, which means it's inclusive, and then also less than or equal to the 31st of December, 2023. So since we're going to be dealing with A1 mostly, let's go ahead and put the cursor here in A1. So say I am doing a, somebody put in, say, January 1st, 2025. Okay, that's going to be the date we're going to be working with. So let me go ahead and activate this formula with an equal. And it came up with a false because it does not fall within the specified range. Now if I were to go ahead and change this to 2023, it changes to true. So that's one way to validate your date and time, to make sure, and I'll show you the formula one more time. Now, with this one, this is the length function, which basically tests the length of what your input is. This comes in handy, especially when you're dealing with somebody, or a lead generation sheet, for example, where you need somebody to actually put in a first name with at least 1 letter. Because you want it to actually, maybe if you're using it for an email send out, you want to be able to personalize it with the person's first name, or at least the first initial. So in this case, we're looking at something that is going to give me a length of less than or equal to 100. So when we go ahead and put in the equal sign to activate it, you see that it'll come up as true. Great. Now, if we were to now I have some little text here that I'm going to copy and paste in this cell, and then you'll see what happens. So what we're seeing here is that it comes out false, because that is way more than 100 characters. It's actually measured in characters. So let's go back. So that's how you execute the text length validation. Okay, next one we're going to take a look at the count if. In the case of count if, you actually have count if, count ifs, and count a. I think those are the 4 ones you have, if memory serves. And you can use them to basically count, if you're counting specific numbers, if you're counting characters, if you're counting strings. You can actually specify what kind you want to count. In this case, we just want to check to see, in the count if statement, we want to check to see if there is something in a cell. Now, when I activate the formula of this count if, it'll show me, yes, there is something in that cell, everything is good. Notice that in this formula, you have A to A, which means it's counting the entire column of A, and then it's checking it against an A1, whatever's in A1. Now, if I were to get away from, oops, hold on a second, it actually, yeah, let me go back and just activate that properly. Great, so it's true. And this one's true as well. So let me get rid of this one. Good. Now, if I were to go ahead and get rid of this, it becomes false. Because what this is showing me is that you have to make sure that there is something, if anything is in that cell in the column, if it's equal to 1, which means that there is something in that cell, then everything's good. If, in this case, it's equal to 0, which means the cell's empty, then it comes up as false. You know, you want to make sure this, for something like this, you would use it if you are, you know, as a forced requirement for a particular field. For example, you want to make sure that somebody's putting in a phone number, somebody's putting in, you know, an email address. Of course, there are more advanced techniques you can use, but this is just a basic, a very simple way to validate that there is a unique value within that particular cell. Okay, so let's deactivate this and move on to the last one. So the next thing, oops, of course I did. All right, so the next one we want to take a look at is numeric validation. Now, this numeric validation is very similar to what you saw with the date and time validation. We want to make sure that this number is within a certain range. In this case, we want to make sure it's either 0 to 100 inclusive, using the isNumber function, which is, again, the same as isDate. You want to make sure that it is a number. So let's go ahead and take a look at, let's see if I put in 88. All right, so this one should automatically come up. Again, it's true. Now, if I put in 1000, it's false. If I were to put in test this, it also comes up as false because it's not a number. All right, very simple. Again, very simple validation. Great for if you want to make sure somebody's putting in a, you know, like a phone number, specific phone number. I know many people are moving to you know, have 10-digit phone numbers, so you want to make sure the person is putting in 10 digits and not 7, not 0, and certainly not anything more than that, unless you want to, if you're going for something that is more of an international, then you can, again, there's certain advanced and more nuanced ways that you can work with that. But again, simple validation where you're making sure that somebody puts in the numbers that are within a specified range. So I hope you found this video useful. Of course, like, subscribe, comment if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next video.